Hi, this is Charles Linden. I want to talk to you about panic attacks. Panic attacks are the extreme manifestation of an anxiety disorder. They're a symptom of an anxiety disorder. They're not a separate disorder. Some people refer to panic disorder. Panic disorder doesn't exist. Without a pre-existing anxiety disorder, panic attacks can't happen. They only happen when anxiety reaches inappropriate levels. And at this point, panic attacks occur. Anxiety disorder occurs because the amygdala, this small organ in the brain which acts as the anxiety thermostat in the body, becomes reset at a higher than normal level of anxiety, and it does this through something called operant conditioning. Operant conditioning is what happens when we learn things that we have to do by repeating the process. For example, learning to drive a car, learning a language, or learning an instrument, for example. These things we have to do repetitively in order to become proficient at them and to learn them instinctually, so we don't have to think about them when we're doing them. Operant conditioning causes anxiety disorders. What happens is there's an initial catalyst for the anxiety, whether that's bereavement, work stress, money worries. That doesn't matter. The point is that catalyst has started the initial anxious response. And then what happens is our subconscious latches on to that anxious response. We become frightened by it. The fear causes anxiety. The anxiety causes the reactions cause the anxiety, and so on. And we get into a vicious cycle. So what happens then is that anxiety escalates in our body. And as we become more frightened by the sensations that we perceive, the strange thoughts, the bodily sensations, anxiety causes us to create more of those sensations. So a panic attack occurs when anxiety is extreme. And what happens is the body goes into the flight or fight response. I'm sure you've heard about this many times before. Adrenaline is released. This is meant to prepare us for imminent danger. Where there is no danger, these resources aren't used. The heart pumps faster. Fluids are sent to the muscles as fuel. And all the symptoms and sensations of anxiety that are so familiar to anxiety sufferers become apparent. Now this doesn't mean that we're in any danger. These things cannot cause harm to us. They just feel incredibly unpleasant. And when no fear exists, when we don't have to run away from danger, when we don't have to fight, these resources go nowhere, so we get muscle tension, chest pains, dizziness, shaking, and where anxiety disorders are perpetuated, we experience those things continuously. So people with inappropriate anxiety and panic attacks experience these things 24/7, and they're incredibly uncomfortable, but the bottom line is they are not dangerous in any way. They are meant to be part of our self-preservation system. So they can't harm you. Of course, when these sensations are there every day, every waking moment, they are so intrusive, they cause us so much distress, that they become very hard to ignore indeed. But that doesn't make them any more appropriate or any more threatening. Going back to my original comment about anxiety disorder and that panic attacks are a symptom of anxiety disorder, this is absolutely true. Any psychophysiologist will tell you that panic attacks are this extreme manifestation of an anxiety disorder, and that the only way to undermine a panic attack is to remove the anxiety that fuels it. And this is true of post-traumatic stress disorder, obsessive-compulsive disorder, phobias. All of them are fueled by underlying anxiety, because without the anxiety, the phobias, the strange thoughts, the unwanted feelings and sensations in the body cannot exist. So the Linden method addresses the anxiety. It doesn't address the symptoms, because that's crazy. If you get rid of the symptoms, the underlying anxiety is still going to be there. It's like taking medication for an anxiety disorder. You take the medication, it masks the symptoms, but it doesn't remove the underlying anxiety. So when you take the medication away, the anxiety comes back. So the most important thing to realise here is that by removing the inappropriate anxiety, you can remove your panic disorder. And I hate the term disorder because it implies that there's something medically wrong with you. There is not anything medically wrong with you. You do not have a mental illness or a physical illness. In fact, you don't have an illness at all. You have a behavioural condition, and it manifests itself as extreme anxiety, which causes panic attacks. This is so simple. By removing the inappropriate anxiety, we will conquer, overcome, eliminate your panic attacks 100%, and they'll be the first symptom of your anxiety that goes. So, how are we going to do this? Well, you've got the Linden Method pack, and that contains everything you need to understand your disorder and understand exactly what it is that you need to do today to start eliminating your anxiety today. So what I want you to do is I want you to read the pack in full, paying particular attention to the 9 pillars. And I need you to implement those 9 pillars immediately. And not half do them. Do them correctly. Follow them to the T. Don't ignore any part of them. It's like making a cake. If you don't put the flour in the cake, it won't be a cake. It might smell like a cake, it might sometimes look like a cake, but at the end of the day it isn't a cake. And it's the same with the Linden Method. You've got to either decide to do this or not to do it. And it is so simple to do. It is so simple to achieve. And it comes in 2 simple steps. A, realization. The realization that your anxiety and your panic attacks are fueled by the amygdala, are perpetuated by the amygdala, and can be undermined by the amygdala. And the only way to do that is by teaching your amygdala new behaviour through operant conditioning. And the second step of this is complying to the whole process, to the Linden Method process. Complying to the steps that you need to take, the 9 pillars. A structured approach to removing the anxious response from your amygdala. And when you do that, your panic attacks will go, no matter how severe they are, no matter how long you've suffered with them. Let's make sure you've understood this. Anxiety fuels panic attacks. Without anxiety, you can't have panic attacks. So take away the anxiety and your panic attacks will go. Your panic attacks are sensations of extreme anxiety. They are when the body reacts with a fight and flight response that is inappropriate to your situation. It feels horrific, very frightening indeed, but it cannot harm you. Full stop. Nobody has ever come to any harm from a panic attack. I have had hundreds of panic attacks. No harm ever came to me, and no harm has ever come to any of the tens of thousands of people that I have helped to overcome their anxiety. So you can rest assured nothing is going to happen to you. In fact, the more your heart races, the more exercise it gets. So if you look at it that way, your heart is actually being done some good by your panic attacks. And to reiterate again, remove the anxiety and you remove the panic. Now I know that this is overwhelming information. I know that your suffering has been so extreme and that you are really scared, and that you're probably limiting your life at the moment, restricting your lifestyle, perhaps even not going out. You might even have phobias or obsessive thoughts. This doesn't matter. No matter what your thoughts, sensations, feelings, emotions are, it's all driven by anxiety disorder. The inappropriate anxiety that you have learned subconsciously, that you have made habitual, that you have made instinctual, and the anxiety that you can remove very simply, but you must stick to the rules. There is no other solution. I promise you that. Whether you call my method the Linden Method, or whether it's something that happens automatically, subconsciously, by accident, and this does happen. People have recovered from anxiety disorders without following any kind of structured program. What my program does is it shows you the roadmap, the simplest route, the quickest route out of your panic attacks, out of your anxiety disorder. Now you can flail around for the next 10 years. You can go to CBT specialists, psychologists, psychiatrists, you can take medication, you can have hypnotherapy, but the bottom line is that if you get rid of your anxiety disorder, now or in the next few years' time, you will have followed the Linden Method. Because there is no other solution. The only way out of anxiety disorder is to retrain your amygdala to be non-anxious. Okay. The next time you have a panic attack, I want you to do this. As soon as you start to feel your heart racing, I want you to take a deep breath in and hold it. And hold